Welcome back, listeners, to a new episode of the Inspired Writer Collective. Today, I am joined by Kim Mosiman, and she is here as an author who has published her first book, a Christian nonfiction called Reflections of Joy. This has been a very interesting read. Thank you for sending me a copy so I could peruse it before we met today. I'm about a little over halfway through, but it's been
Nice.
a very quick read, very enjoyable. And I wanted to talk to you today both about your process for writing this book, how you went about publishing this book, and also how that process has been shaped what you're doing now and how you are serving others to help them launch their own books.
Yeah. I'm excited and I love seeing that bookmark move in there. So, um, I always thought that I would write a book. I owned a gym for a long time, as I'm sure you know now.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote a weekly newsletter, and that's where I fell in love with public writing and then I decided to create a blog and there's just been that natural evolution of sharing my words. So then, eventually, I thought I would write a book, like a how-to manual, and that didn't happen. Instead, my world kind of fell apart when I closed the gym, and I think I shared with you, I became like my own worst client. And as I turned things around for me, I was journaling and writing, and came up with the outline and the idea for Reflections of Joy, which is not so much a how to, but a how I book. So,
Well, that's what I love about it, though, is because I'm not super trusting of people who try to give me health advice when it looks like they've had the easy path to it, right?
mhm,
I really prefer to get all of my wisdom from those who have really experienced the true downsides of something and have had to dig themselves out of the trenches. It's like,
yeah,
do I want to take a, writing workshop from someone who just can sit down at the computer and the words just naturally flow? No, I want someone like me who struggles to carve out time in between all their parenting responsibilities or all the other things they have to do, or who can't always wait until inspiration hits them in order to get their writing done in order to meet their goals. So, for me, that's what opens me up to have like a willingness to even like hear what advice you have, to read it and like consider it and take it in. Because yes, you did the gym thing and you were doing it and you had the kind of body you wanted and you're eating healthy. And then things took a big backslide and you are working yourself back out of that and have found a new way of being that feels much more like whole body, mind, spirit
mhm,
versus just a focus on the body. And so for me, I love that you've written this book from that perspective and that it's not just a how to, and that you actually put so much of your personal stories into it so that I don't feel as, I don't know, like an outsider having my own struggles when, I read your lines about how, the things that used to work for us suddenly stop working. I'm like, yeah, yeah, that's me. That was me, I don't know, 2 months ago where I realized, wait, something has definitely shifted in my body. And the things that used to really help, like just drinking more water, doing a little bit more walking or this or whatever, is no longer having the level of impact that it used to have
yeah.
in being able to see those changes. And so I really love the way that you crafted this book. You've made it both available for like bite size,
hmm
but also I've been reading it more like a sprint and it's also not overwhelming. You've somehow mastered that
Mm.
whole idea of you can take it piece by piece as you're ready, or you can kind of consume it all and it's not overwhelming.
And that was really my intention. Um, I wrote it as read a chapter, right? The whole
Mhm,
thing. But then even as I was reading my own words and going back
mhm.
through in my beta readers, which are so helpful, they were
Yes.
like, the thing is, Kim, is that no one has time for this. And that's the thing I heard over and over again in the gym is I don't have time to cook healthy. I don't have time to exercise every day. I don't have time. We don't have time.
Mhm.
So we went back through and restructured and really tried to make it um, several mini conversations that you and I might have when we connected with one another. Like, let's talk about this. Okay, move on with our day. And then the next time we see each other, have another conversation. So I'm glad that I'm glad that it's working for you the way you're reading it, but also that you can see how I intended it. So that makes me feel
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about beta readers because going to be reaching that stage of my own road to publication. And I just had a conversation with Stephanie about this. This is one of our mini summer episodes that in July. And it's so interesting to me because I've seen this trend, I guess I would call it, of like people putting out services to be paid beta readers.
Mm.
But for me, that's not my understanding of what the purpose of a beta reader is. I want my beta readers to be someone who's in my target audience for the book, who reads the book and gives me their honest feedback, not because I paid them for their feedback, but just to give me like a early perspective of what kinds of things I might see in a, Amazon review if I were to just publish it and not go through that step. So I'm curious how you found your beta readers, how many you had, what kind of guidance or questions you had for them. Like, how did you approach the beta reading step?
I had just come out of copy editing, or I'm sorry,
Mhm.
developmental editing.
Mhm.
And so I had that list of professional comments and questions, but I didn't want to rewrite and then come back out and
Mm.
then have to figure out if I had touched my audience. So I chose 5 different women that were within my targeted reader audience.
Mhm. Mhm.
Each one had a different profession in life. Each one was at a different stage in their faith and also physically, right? Because they do talk about our bodies and and I just asked them to read it, to highlight those sections that didn't resonate with them or felt offensive or that they
Mhm.
really loved, that just really spoke volumes to them. And I steered them away from don't check my spelling, don't check my
Yes.
punctuation, don't check my grammar. It's not what I'm looking for. I want to know what you're getting from this book so that when you turn the last page,
Mhm.
do you walk away with something that you can use? Or
Mhm.
do you just walk away thinking, "Oh, well, good for her," you know? And
Oh, yeah.
I think that I think that some people write in isolation, so it seems natural for them just to reach out to a professional to read their
Mhm.
book, and that's fine. I mean, some people can make a living from that. That's fine. But the beta readers I chose were friends and colleagues who who could give me that feedback because I wanted you to be able to pick up the book now a year later and 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 for me to know that I didn't miss. I mean, maybe I missed some things. Maybe there's something you reading it think, gosh, I wish she would have gone a little farther on this.
Mhm.
But I really think that through their viewpoints and their comments and their constructive criticisms that I created a book that could be used by people, by women particularly, across several ages and circumstances.
Yeah,
So,
I love that. So that's really helpful for me to hear that that was your experience with beta readers because that's been my understanding of the purpose of beta readers.
mhm,
Personally, I'm waiting like maybe like a half step after you did because I did some early developmental edits on my memoir when it was still like a memoir self-help combo. I've
right.
done massive amounts of rewrites. And right now I know it's too long. Like my word count is pretty high compared to a typical memoir. So I know stuff has to be cut. And so I'm actually sending it to an editor at the end of this month and want to get her feedback so that I can at least cut those portions that
Yeah.
aren't going to be in there in the long run and that may be slowing down the pacing or anything like that or causing confusion before I send it to beta readers because I
Yep.
do want them to have like as close to the final version minus the like copy editing,
Mhm.
punctuation, grammar stuff
Yep.
because I do want to get a feel of like because it's my memoir, does it make sense? Do my choices make sense? But I
Yep.
love that question you posed to your readers. You might have to remind me of it, but like, are you just saying like, oh, this is good for you? Or did you actually have a takeaway from this? Like, that's
Mhm.
to me a really great question, not just for your book as more of a self-help with some anecdotes and memoir aspects, but even for like my full memoir, I mean, I'm writing it because I hope people will take away some of it for their own experience. And that's part of why I'm seeking out beta readers who can relate to either my motherhood journey or the complications with my marriage or my divorce or those aspects of the story that I'm sharing.
Yep. I just think it's so important as writers that we're not married to our words.
Mhm.
It's very important before your beta readers, before you read their comments, that you're still willing to make changes. Because if it doesn't resonate, if you send it out to 5, and there's a section that you're just really tied to, but it's not resonating with any of them, you have to go back in and rework that. Um, I think some people use beta readers as validation. They just want, is it good or is it
Mhm.
bad? Is it ready or is it not? But if you use it as the final editing tool, after you've been through the professionals, um, because we want it to resonate with people. We want them to walk away and think, oh my gosh, I never thought about that. That can be so helpful in my life as well, and so yeah, I wish you luck. I would not do, I would tell someone too, don't get too many beta readers, because if
Really?
you if
Okay.
you choose
Mhm.
good beta readers, if you choose people and you give them a list of questions or
Mhm.
things to comment about,
Mhm.
you don't want to have to try and process 10 different people's opinions.
Mhm.
Just,
Mhm.
maybe choose 4 to 6 and make sure that they have a wide variety of experiences within your target audience.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think I've heard the larger number simply because so many people have experienced people not finishing it or not getting back to them or whatever. And so
Hmm.
it's like if you give it to 8 to 10, hopefully you get at least 4 good, nuggets of feedback because you don't want too few because then it may just be that one person's opinion. It's hard to get like perspective over whether this is really an issue or whether this one person just didn't like it.
Yeah. And that's difficult too, because even with launch teams, let's go to a completely different part of the process.
Mhm.
Um, so often you put your completed work in someone's hand because you want a pre-read and you want some lift during pre-order or during the ordering cycle, and you want reviews. So few people complete. It's very difficult. So,
Yeah, let's talk
beta
about ARC
readers,
readers. How
yeah.
many ARC reader copies did you send out? What kind of results did you get from that? Because I know we've talked about this before on the podcast that with Amazon, it won't even like offer your book as an option until you get like, unless you search for it directly, until you get 50 reviews. So you
Yeah.
really need those 50 reviews quickly.
Yes, and I had 50 people on my lunch team,
Mm.
and many of them did an incredible job of sharing graphics that I provided. This book's available for order. Bye, bye, bye. That was great. But when it
Mhm.
came to writing the review,
Mhm.
only 20 of the 50 completed the review. And sometimes
Mhm.
I think it's writer anxiety. Those who
Yes.
don't write are afraid to write.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm still struggling a year later for that 50th review. Now I
Well,
talked
don't
to
worry.
people.
I'm going to add my review once I finish the book.
I appreciate that. And the thing is like, even if you bought from a different vendor,
Mhm.
or if you purchased it from my website, you can still submit an Amazon review.
Mhm.
It doesn't say verified purchase because you
Right.
didn't purchase from them,
Right.
but they will evaluate. It goes through a process before they put it up, and that might take a little bit longer, but it's still worth asking, and it's still worth doing if you're. I didn't realize the importance of reviews until I became a writer. And now I
Mhm.
review everything and everything I read, I review it, even if I'm not connected, because it
Yeah.
makes such a difference.
Isn't
Um,
that wild though? Because I read reviews to decide if I'm going to buy something.
mhm,
Very often, I'm looking at the reviews. I'm
mhm,
looking at both the like overall, but I'm also looking at the bad because I just want to know like if there are downsides, what was this person's opinion? Do I think that has any weight or not? And so it's like I use reviews
right.
to, govern my purchase decisions, but do I often leave reviews when I have a good experience? No. No. And that's kind of the downside of reviews, right?
Yeah.
Stephanie and I have joked because we have like a 1-star review for this podcast because someone listened to our book club episode about not being able to finish Demon Copperhead. And in their review, they said, I don't know why you felt like you should do a whole episode. You didn't even finish reading the book, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, and it's in the title. So like, I think that should have been expected. We clearly said from in the title and from the beginning that we didn't finish it. And that's okay if you didn't like that. But we devoted all this time to making this content, so we figured we might as well put it out there in case other people also had trouble reading this, award-winning book. Not every book is for everybody. And it's interesting because then we only have like maybe 4 or 5-star reviews. So the balance is really off. But again, people don't often leave reviews unless they have something more negative to say.
Right. And I don't think we should be afraid of reviews that offer constructive criticism or even like outright criticisms.
Sure.
I am thrilled to tell you that I have only 5-star reviews. But sometimes as the author, it's like I want to know what you really thought. So if there's a piece that didn't resonate with you, like you're not going to hurt my feelings if you felt like it was worth 4 stars or even 3 stars. If there was something that was blatantly missing or that you disagreed with, it's okay. I mean, I surely don't want reviews that attack me personally, but reviews that disagree with what I've written or maybe make me a better author down the road, I'm all about it. So that's what I try to tell people is, yes, I'm thrilled. There are 42 5s. Yay me, right? But, and many of them are beautifully written. But it's okay. If you didn't feel like that, still put it out there. That allows someone like you who reads reviews to make an honest decision about whether or not my book is for them.
Well, and me, as a person that reads reviews, I'm a little less trusting of all 5-star reviews.
Yeah.
It becomes like, really? 5? Everyone gave 5? Like, there's not anything wrong. Like, no one has read this book who didn't totally think it was like this most stellar reading experience. Like, come on,
Yeah.
So then it makes it look like, are all these reviews just friends that are trying to support you, and that's all great and good, but it's not particularly honest feedback and then too, you as a writer, like you said, how do you then, push yourself to improve your craft? Where are your areas that you may be blind to or you can, grow and strengthen to not have any sort of, like you said, constructive, feedback to be able to work on and hone. It kind of does you a disservice in that sense too.
Yeah. Yep. That's where we have to have conversations with other authors and with coaches and all those things. I mean, yeah, it's an ongoing experience, isn't it?
It is.
Yes.
Well, I would love for you to talk a little bit about how you went about publishing this book, because you used a hybrid publisher model that I'd love for you to share with our audience a little bit about. And then how some of the, I guess, lacking areas of that motivated you to create and co-found your business and coaching now.
Yep. I did. I knew that I had a book on my heart, and I had told myself all along that I was going to write it, but I was not motivated enough to sit down, write a book, write a proposal, and pitch it on my own. Life gets in the way. And that wasn't for me. It is a lot. And I am still, after going to a writer's conference last week, I am still so amazed by the people who have made this their sole career. I'm just amazed. I chose to use a hybrid publisher, and the experience was really very good for me because I needed someone to set deadlines. I needed someone to offer me the connections. I didn't know editors. I didn't know proofreaders. And of course we can find those people, but then it's like the reviews. Who do I trust with my work and my words? Right. And I think that brings a lot of anxiety for many people, and that's why they don't finish the book. Right. We all know those
especially
numbers.
On that like developmental edit, you've got to find someone not who's just a good editor, quote unquote, but who really understands the story you're trying to share.
Absolutely. And I was fortunate to have had a developmental editor that interacted with me. I worked with a coach, and the very best piece of the whole thing for me was this cohort that was put together, and I have established some lifelong relationships and found some of my beta readers, and just really, I know my book is here today because of the path that I chose.
Yeah.
I was not going to spend the money that I spent and ignore a deadline or not get the work done. Um, but um, but what I thought when I signed a contract is that the work of the marketing and would be on the publisher. And I guess I thought that traditional publishers did all the marketing and things too. And what I've learned through this process
Mhm.
is that with the tools that we have today, with the internet and with social media and all the things, it really has become the responsibility of the author to market their book and to launch their book. My publisher sent something out to their email list, and but it's not their job in marketing is to market their product. My job in marketing is to market my product, and it was initially frustrating um, to have to learn things because I ran a gym. I didn't use Canva. I didn't have to worry about social media. I didn't have to worry about learning how to do reels that like drew people in because I ran a gym. Um, but with this book, I had to learn those things, and I learned that I liked doing it, and I learned that I was efficient at it. And so out of that, with a friend that I met through the cohort, we kept saying we were helping other people. We were helping
Mhm.
our friends who didn't understand it. We were helping women who didn't know how to put Canva pieces together or um, how to write captions that made a difference. And so, jokingly, one day she said to me, "Oh, we should create a coaching business, right? Because we were both coaches. I'm a wellness coach and a life coach, and she's a grief coach and an Enneagram coach. And we thought we could do this."
Mhm.
And so, after some soul searching and a lot of prayer, we decided that we would begin a coaching business. And joyfully, I spend probably 20 hours a week on Zoom calls, sometimes sharing my screen and simply walking someone through how to create good graphics, how to write
Mhm.
a newsletter, how to build a launch team and send out emails that pull people in.
Mhm.
And it's really been amazing. Amazing. So something that could have been frustrating, right? Reflections of joy. I'm always looking for the joy in things. Um, something that could have just like pushed me away from publishing again
Mhm.
drew me in, and I think I found my true call, or at least his call for me in this time of my life. So
Yeah, I love that. And it's just a great reminder. We say this all the time on the podcast that like so much of the time the reason people push themselves to choose traditional publishing is because they don't want to do the marketing piece, like they're scared of that piece. And the reality is that's not going to solve your problem.
right.
Like you're going to have to learn how to market your book if you want copies to be sold. If you want it in the hands of readers, like you're going to have to market it. Now, if you only just want to publish it because you really just want to publish a book, by all means, just get it out there in whatever way, whether you use KDP or whatever, put it out there, brush your hands off. You published the book, great job, and just let it be. But it's because you want people to actually read your book, you really have to put in that time
Hmm.
with marketing. Um, would you share, because I know we chatted a little bit about this in our meeting before we recorded. Would you share a little bit about when you think people need to start thinking about the process of marketing their book and why your beliefs are what they are?
I think you should start before you start writing your book. I think it's critical, and
Mhm.
I believe this to be true because of the experiences I've had on lunch teams. I've
Mhm.
worked with several incredible women. Every author that I've helped launch their book or release their book has been amazing and written good words. But it's the authors who have a presence, who have their platform at least started, that are selling books. I think that it's unrealistic to think that you can post a couple cute pictures on social media and tell people about your book when it's ready to be purchased and that people will purchase it because they
Mhm.
just don't know you yet. And a million books come out a year, right? It's unrealistic to think that you should be able just to say, I have a book and people will buy. So if you have a book idea, or for you, you're in the process of writing, your social
Mhm.
media presence or your newsletter or your
Mhm.
blog posting should be strong from the day you make the decision to write. You
How do
want
you
people to get,
recommend?
oops, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say you should have people asking you, when's your book coming out? When's your book coming out? Long before your book is even close to coming out.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I get those questions. I didn't start my newsletter until January of this year, knowing that I want my book to come out early next year.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of those pieces, that it's like, I know I need to get this, machine cranking. And I had so many family friends asking me that question, like, when's your book coming out? When's your book
Yeah.
coming out? And I was like, well, you know what? I have stories I've cut from the memoir that I'm happy to share with people, to give them a taste of my writing and kind of as a little like incentive, I guess, to join the email list, plus keeping people updated with where I am in the writing process. Um, and at times it can be really tough to balance the deadlines of getting the actual book done and also maintaining that presence, especially for me on social media, because it
Mm-hmm.
that one exhausts me way more than drafting a monthly email to my friends and family who are essentially what comprise my email list at this point. So what do you advise authors to do to balance maybe what may be limited time? Like I'm during the school year, I've got maybe an hour 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
And so that hour is mostly devoted to just getting that writing done because I had pretty aggressive, rewrite goals and objectives and timelines that I put on myself.
Mm-hmm.
How do you recommend that authors balance showing up on those platforms and in those various, I guess, future marketing channels, with writing?
I would say if you only have 3 hours a week, it's important if part of that is writing your blog posts or your newsletter, you should take content from your blog post or your newsletter and you should repurpose it in social media. Um, and I don't think you have to reinvent the wheel every single time.
Mhm.
You can put on just repeat your pictures. You can repeat your messages. I always recommend to my clients that they sit down with their color schemes and their words, and they create a brand, and they make 20 images that can be repurposed with new
Oh, I love
words.
that. Mhm.
Um, and because that's what gets us all wrapped up in time. You're sitting down on Canva and you're trying to like create something brand new, and you don't need to. Sometimes it's just swap the colors. Sometimes it's swap the words. Sometimes you can just be kind to yourself and realize that not everyone who knows you, follows you, likes you, sees every single post. So it's not
Right.
like you're like they're thinking, "Oh my gosh, she's so uninspired and so uncreative." Just go create 20 posts that are sitting there in your file ready to use and then take words from what you're already writing. Even if it's from
Mm.
your manuscript, take some
Mhm.
words and share them. Certainly at least 3, 4 times a week. You don't have to be brilliant. You just have to be there, right? People just have to know that you're there. And then if for me, I need to be time bound. If I only had 3 hours a week to work on my writing, I don't know that I would have gotten there. So I'm inspired by you that you are moving forward with, because I decided to write once my kids were grown.
Mhm.
But for me, if I have to write, somehow if I set a timer for 30 minutes,
Mhm.
it unlocks the portals and it allows me to function knowing I'm not going to miss anything. I'm not going to
Yep.
go over. I can turn off my phone and my notifications for 30 minutes, and
Mhm.
often I'm so into it when the alarm goes off, I hit repeat because it can happen again and again and again for as long as that window is open for you. So I believe we overthink it. I told you I was at a writers conference last week. I talked to several people who have time-bound lives,
Mm-hmm.
yet they're still getting the work done. But where there's a will, there's a way. And sometimes that just means setting all expectations aside and putting the words down, however they come.
Yeah, the way you described is exactly how I did it. And I actually found that I got more done by having less time versus when I wasn't working and I was just able to write whenever, I felt inspired or whatever. No, having only this 40 minutes between when I got off work and when I had to pick my daughter up from school. Stephanie, who is the co-host of this podcast, we would meet virtually on Zoom. We would black out our cameras. We would, mute our mics, and we would just both write. And usually I could get like 1,300 words down.
Mm-hmm.
You just get into that flow. And I trained myself that when I need to, I can just drop into that flow. I don't have to have all this ritual anymore around like, okay, first I want to journal so I can get these ideas out of my head that are, my life stuff that's going on. And I need some mood music or I need a cup of tea. I don't need all that. I literally can just set the timer and go now.
Yeah.
And it's kind of because you have to, right? Like some of us are just really busy. And if it's going to get done, if it's important to you, you find a way to get it done.
Yep. And I was talking to someone last week. She's like, I'm just blocked. I'm blocked. Can't get it done. I sit and I stare at my computer. I'm like, oh, okay, so we're all carrying around these magical little computers in our pockets, right? I'm like, put in your earbuds and click on your notes app and hit the audio and go for a walk. If you're blocked with your fingers staring at a screen, go look at something inspiring and beautiful and talk the words in. Now, it's gonna mumble some of them up. Like you're gonna have to figure out what abracadabra really was when you spoke it, but that's part of the fun too. But I wrote probably, well, the entire last chapter was written as I walked in the morning as sun rose. And it was just important to me that I be in touch with the reader and with myself and with God when I wrote that chapter. And it wasn't happening in conventional ways. And so my coach said to me, Kim, just go to a place where it's beautiful. Well, I can't sit and then write and not be distracted. That doesn't work for me. So I walked and I talked to God and the chapters came forward. And I would highly recommend if you're stuck or even if you're busy, like if you're on your way to pick up your daughter, you can still hit the notes app and hit audio and you can talk through an idea. It's not going to be finalized, but it can be good.
And now on iPhones, you can record calls. I know there was a section of my book that I needed my sister to help me remember some of the stuff, like or the timeline around some certain things. So I called her one day while I was walking and I was like, okay, I'm going to record this. I want to talk through this with you. So then I hit record and then I could listen back to that recording of our conversation to like then map out what I needed to in the timeline and get things all sorted. Or just like you talked about, I went on a hike this weekend. I think it was Friday. I have a loop that I do, and it was a loop that I was on when I had this moment of inspiration, which really brought about the whole title of the book. And just the other day, I was up doing that loop and really got this inspiration of sort of this overarching message that I wanted to include in the last chapter. And so I paused on the trail. I quickly pulled out my notes app. I did just write it out quickly versus doing a voice note or anything. But yeah, you sometimes you just gotta break out of, get away from the desk, untether yourself, get out in nature or do something that's a little bit more right-brained.
Yes.
In order to tap into some of that inspiration or to get that motivation going again.
Yeah. Yeah. There are no wrong ways.
One last thing I wanted to touch on before we sign off for today is using podcasts as marketing. Simply because we are on a podcast, I feel like that's an appropriate topic for us to dig into. We have an earlier episode where Stephanie and I talked about the value of being a podcast guest as a writer and why that's helpful for developing kind of your spiel and how you will talk about your work, how you promote yourself, and even just getting confidence in speaking, with potentially just one other person before you have to speak in front of an audience and maybe do a book reading or something when you get those sort of opportunities. So talk to me about podcasts.
Yes, I completed 45. I recorded 45 last year between like release and my first anniversary, which just occurred in May. Um, I love talking about my book, and I think that my message, just like you said, you ground yourself into your message the more you do it. Um, it, but that's like launching your book or releasing your book or marketing your book. You should begin before the book comes out. There's a misconception for people who don't podcast that when I should contact you 2 weeks before my book's coming out because I want to talk to you and your audience about my book. And I didn't realize the lead time and how many people record and build their vault of episodes months ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, I don't think, well, there's no reason why you can't talk about your book anytime, even when it's still in formation stage. I mean, heck, talk to people. If I wrote about middle-aged women and health and wellness and spirituality, those are all topics that are timeless. I don't have to have a
Mm-hmm.
book for you to buy to be considered an expert or a voice that supports those women. So just go out and start talking. I think it's our greatest opportunity, and most of the time it's free. And I know that there are some people like you were talking about beta readers. I know there are some podcasters that are charging um, to be on their episodes. I I haven't done any, and I don't think I will because there's so many wonderful people out there just doing it to support their own ministry and missions and businesses. So heck, start talking right away. I think it's a really great resource for people.
Yeah, to give the listeners a kind of behind the scenes insight to this, I think you and I originally connected on Threads sometime in the spring
Mm-hmm.
when I didn't have any openings for podcast guests. We had already recorded all of our spring guest episodes. And then now we are recording this middle of June,
Mm-hmm.
and this episode will not release until sometime in our fall season.
Mm-hmm.
So, just to give the listener, any potential writers who want to be a guest either on this podcast or on other podcasts, if the podcast has been around for a little while, most of us have gotten to the point where we're batching our content, where we're, recording in big groupings for the season ahead. For Stephanie and I, this has been pivotal in giving us the time to actually work on our books. We can't be
Mm-hmm.
chasing down guests week after week after week and still have any time to do the major writing sprints or editing that we need to do on our own work. And so that's why we've gotten to a point over this year and a half now of podcasting where we are looking for guests usually several months before the episodes ever air. And we only do this like these big kind of guest recruiting spots twice a year. And you have to be on our email list to get one of those spots because there are not that many of them and they go quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that's great. I'm so glad you shared that from your own experience. And hopefully others will feel inspired by that. I wonder if you would close us off with your offering to our listeners and tell them where they can find you.
Yeah. As we mentioned, I have created a coaching business with another author, and we created Writer to Writer, and we love to help teach um, authors how to launch their books into the world, how to finish their books, how to market and use their voice. So I am offering a 30-minute call, free call with anyone, just to talk about whatever you want to. If it leads into a relationship and we work together, great. If it doesn't, that's great too. I love writing. I love authors. I love interacting with people and making new friends. And so you can find me, and I'll send you my links, but writer2writer.com is our website, and it's writer dash the number 2 dash writer .com.
Thank you, Kim. We'll include all of those links inside the show notes, as well as links to your social media and everything, so that people can find you and continue to connect with you, whether it's because they want to read this book that you've written or because they want to connect with you in order to get help launching their own book. Thank you again for being here with us today.
Yes, it's been great. Thank you.